What is up, everybody? Welcome to DLC Day Part 3. Let's go ahead and take a look at Rogue's Gallery first because I actually have a handle on what that deck is. And then we'll go ahead and take a gander at Mana Mastery after that. So right off the bat, we've got 3 Terramorphic Expanses. I think they're a lot cooler than the other version of this, just because of the card art. So there you go, great day, right off the bat. Then we got Infiltrate, not in love with this. Target creature is unblockable this turn. It works in this particular deck, but I don't think it's great. Agony Warp, target creature gets -3 in the front, target creature gets -3 in the ass. We've got several copies of that, 3 of them right out the gate. This is actually, if you're going to have a card that does this, make it cost 2, make it look this way, and I'll play it. This is actually the best way that this kind of card can run. It's definitely an enjoyable card because of the tricks that you can get off. I like tricks, I like removal. It depends on how the rest of the removal in this deck shapes up, because it's definitely not my favorite removal. It's not my favorite way to get rid of a creature because it really relies heavily on what your opponent's going to do. And I'm not in love with reactionary cards to the point where they control whether or not me playing it is a good idea or not. I like cards where I can react to situations in a myriad of ways, but all of those are my decision and they can all work well. It just depends on the situation. I don't like them controlling it 100%, and a lot of this card is on them. But this is the best way that they're going to entice me to play a card like this, so there you go. We got Dimir Guildmage, or as I call him, Bane of my existence, because the first time I did a video I sounded like a jackass because I said you could play his ability as a interrupt, but you very obviously can only play it as a sorcery. He would be Broke Dope McNutballs if you could play that as an interrupt. I'm pretty sure my friends and I played it that way when I was growing up, but like I said, I wasn't big into tournaments or anything back then. We were just casual. This card's good though, very good. The discard, I think, is a lot better than people think. Repetitive discard is very, very good. It makes it so that if you have this guy on the field late game and you have the mana to power him, it makes it so that your opponent knows that they only have 1 turn, or half of a turn rather, just their steps, just their section of the turn to play their cards. Because if they pass it to you, you're going to go ahead and get rid of it. It makes it very hard, very difficult for your opponents to mount a defense, and it also gives you great card advantage. Drawing a card is fantastic too, but repeatable discard is very awesome. Just ask Liliana. I'm pretty sure her card at $25 a pop will let you know that it's pretty good ability. Next we got Ink Fathom Infiltrator. This bad boy is unblockable but cannot intercept, meaning that it cannot block other creatures. We've got several copies of that guy. We go straight into Invisible Stalker. He's unblockable and hexproof. I'm just kind of covering those all as one thing. Invisible Stalker is awesome because he's hexproof. I love him very much. He is very flashery right there, kind of disturbing. Moving on. Mask of Riddles. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. This card's awesome. It's really speaking to the mechanic of this deck, I believe, which we'll get to at the end of this. Walking Corpse, Grizzle Death, not too exciting right here. 2/2 for 2. Doesn't really fit, in my opinion. Probably not going to make it. We got Boring Vampire, a 3/2 for 3. This card does work, but she's a little small in the ass. I mean, you can see from the artwork too. There's just not a whole lot of meat to that pie. So we're just going to move right on to these crafty Path Mages. Those Path Mages, man, they are crafty. Wait a minute. Is that lady? Anyway, turning target creature power 2 or less is unblockable this turn. I was trying to figure out if this card is veiled racism, but it might not be. I don't know. It's a 1/1 for 3. But it makes your dudes unblockable. That's going to be pretty instrumental in how this deck comes together, I believe. We got Dimir Cutpurse. This is a 3-drop. It's going to cost you 1 of each, as well as a colorless, or in any color you choose. It's a 2/2, but it's got some pretty interesting tricks. It makes your opponent discard a card, and you get to draw a card. So that is very awesome, actually. I like that. Phantom Warrior is a 2/2 that's unblockable. He is pretty damn famous, I'd say. He's been in a lot of the iterations of this game. I don't want to say everyone without knowing for sure, but he's been in a lot of them. Next, we got Scroll Thief. He's going to draw you a card if he ever gets in. It's not often, but he is still a 1/3 for 3. Not terrible. Soul Manipulation. We saw how awesome this card is when we played through with the deck the first time. You go ahead and get to counter a spell and bring one of your dudes back to life. An important thing to note with a card like this is that when you can choose both, that's amazing. And you don't want to waste this card by any means. But the thing that a lot of new players, and so if you've been playing for a long time, you can go ahead and kind of ignore me right now, because I know a lot of people are going to start screaming at their computers that I'm way off base and I'm wrong on this. But a lot of new players will make the mistake of only playing this card or waiting to play this card until they can do both, until they have a creature in the graveyard to bring back. And that's a mistake. I mean, this is a 3-mana counterspell. If they're gonna lay Grave Titan and you don't counter it because you want to be able to get the most out of this card and you don't have anything in the yard just then, that's not a good play. So I know that you don't want to take it in the other direction where you're just like, oh, I'm gonna play this card right now, it's amazing. You want to be moderate with it. You want to hold on to it until you can get the most bang for your buck, but just a lot of new players, and this is a pratfall that I don't want to see you guys falling into online or anything, a lot of new players will hold on to these cards because they are so awesome. Same thing with Kicker a lot of times. It's just these kind of mechanics kind of make it difficult for newer players to make those hard decisions. And I just want to remind you guys that it is an option to use this for one or the other ability. So there you go. Anyway, that was a little PSA for you. But we're going to go to Abyssal Spectre. This dude makes some discard a card when he gets in for damage. Flight of Fancy, I talked about this quite a bit when we were playing through, I believe. This is very similar to the new Dimir mechanic that I'm very excited about. But it's got a very awesome initial effect where we get to draw 2 cards, and it gives one of our creatures flying, and the evasion is perfect in this deck since so many of our creatures do things when they get in for damage. We've got a couple copies of that. We've got the Liege, which is pretty boring. It's a 2/3 for 4. It gives all our other dudes +1/+1, so it's in here. It's going to be in here in the final iteration, I imagine. But it doesn't have any of the awesome effects of some of the other lieges. This card's awesome. It is 3 and a either or of the black or the blue Persuasion. And as long as enchanted creature is blue, it gets +1/+1. If it's black, it's +1/+1. And you get to draw a card, and your opponent has to discard a card, respectively. I think that's how I covered it. But it's pretty awesome. It's going to make your dudes quite a bit bigger. Your unblockable dudes are going to get a little bit better, and they get this nifty ability. So that's pretty good in there. We got this guy, Cumulative Upkeep, cost 1 life. We talked about him a little bit when we played, maybe? Am I drunk right now? I don't know if we even saw this guy. I mentioned Cumulative Upkeep at some point. I'm not sure, but this guy is kind of expensive by today's standards. He's a 4/4 for 4 with evasion. In the olden times, this card had like bonus costs because those cards were quite strong. Anymore, with, you know, the increase in power, not that great, especially with the losing 1 life. I don't see him sticking around necessarily. We've got an enchant creature. Pretty awesome. Auras are always kind of tricky because you can get 2 for 1 pretty easily, but this is going to get a guy out of your graveyard into your hand. Pretty awesome for 4 mana. And when you think about it, if you play it at the right time, you know, on your first main when your opponent is tapped down, you're going to get to at least 1 card out of your graveyard. So, I mean, it's definitely not terrible. So, you got 2 of those in there. It's Shoreline Salvager. This dude is, you're gonna be drawing a card if you control an island and he's dealing the damages. So he's a 3/3 for 4. We got Followed Footsteps, which is a classic. It's also in the Aura Panther deck as well. It's gonna let you make copies of enchanted creature, Ribbons of Night, talked about this too. It's a removal spell. You get to draw a card if you control a blue, which you will in this deck. If you don't, you're in big trouble. If you've got 5 mana down and you don't have a blue, I think you've got other problems. So it's a pretty nice removal spell. It's a sorcery speed removal, so it's not fantastic. But it does have, you know, bonus tricks that make it quite a bit tastier. Harvester of Souls has Death Touch. He's a 5/5 for 6 mana. Whenever another non-token creature dies, you get to draw a card. I think you're seeing the theme at this point. This guy is super expensive. He's also our curve out on the mana curve here. Mind Leech Mass. This guy's got the Tramply Tramps. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you may look at target player's hand. If you do, you may cast a non-land card from it without paying that card's mana cost. He costs a lot. At that point, they can kind of control when you have an opportunity to use him, being in that they can play down their hand in most instances, to the point where you won't actually be able to use that ability. I mean, he's definitely not Bribery on a stick. Bribery is freaking dope nuts, and that would be an awesome card. Does that exist? I don't know. Tell me in the comments. I can't think of Bribery on a stick right now, to be honest with you, but maybe he is. This is like a Mind Claw Shaman that's way later in the game and reusable. But still not fantastic to me. I mean, you guys probably know, if you're longtime viewers, I don't like to top out at 8 mana. I just think that's a lot. Just talking about this deck on the whole, we can obviously see that they're gearing this towards Dimir's evasion aspects, and less towards the idea of Dimir as being a mill deck. I love that, because we've already got a mill deck in the format. I don't really want another mill deck, and I think that this is going to be a really fun iteration. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this operates in the format, and I think it's going to lend itself to a lot of really cool combos and stuff like that, and just a lot of really cool things that you can do. I think this is going to be a lot more fun than just having another mill deck in the mix. So we're going to jump out and jump right into Mana Mastery. Wow, that was even under 15 minutes. You guys, we're making great time. We'll be there before you know it. This deck worries me quite a bit. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. We've got 2 Evolving Wilds. We've got like 4 Terramorphic Expanses or something. So we've got 6 of these type of lands all together. They're slow, they're clunky, but you can see from our mana base over on the right there that we need every last one of them. We might get rid of one in the future. I don't know. I doubt it, because I am never sad to draw these when I am playing this deck. We've got Rampant Growth that's going to let us get a basic land and put it onto the field. That's pretty awesome. We've got several copies of that. We've got a playset. We've got Savage Twister. I talked about this a little bit earlier. If I'm going to play a deck like this, I want my removal to be mass of the mass variety. Let's put it that way. Savage Twister fills that need. Be aware that it damages your creatures as well, and I think you should have a pretty good time with it. It can take care of things early game, and considering the mana ramp that we have at our disposal with this deck, it can be pretty devastating late game as well. Got a couple copies of that. We've got Cultivate. Lets you fish up 2 land cards. One of them comes into play, one of them goes to your hand. We've got several copies of that as well. I mean, it's good. It's a 3-drop. It's not as good a 3-drop as Pernicious Deed, though. Tenacious Deed right here is one of the freaking most awesome things ever. You get to destroy everything with converted mana cost X or less. If you pay X for 0, you get to kill every token on the field. Please, please don't forget that that is a viable option. It's just awesome. Pernicious Deed is great. I love it. Vindicate, awesome as well. Vindies, always in there, always a good time. We got Day of Judgment, more mass removal. I like that. Destroy all creatures. Vindee destroys target permanent, by the way. We've got Allied Strategies. This is expensive. I actually took one of them out, just because you get to draw 5 cards. I mean, you're going to play it late enough that you'll have every mana type out at that point. And a lot of times it's going to help you out. It's going to get you in there where you need to be. I just don't like having a playset of them in there since early game it's really going to hamper my play. I mean, you know how cringeworthy I view this freaking mana curve as. I mean, we just talked about how I like to keep my curve small. You do not have that ability with this deck. So, all Suns Dawn, for each color, return up to one target card of that color from your graveyard to your hand, and then you exile this card so you can't like link them together, and just your graveyard is now your hand basically, even though anymore we have cards that just straight up do that. Tameo. Anyway, so this card's pretty cool. We got one in there, why the hell not? We got Child of Alara. It's got Trample. It's a 6/6 for 5, so that's pretty good. When it dies, it just I mean, it's like a nuclear baby, so it just explodes, and, you know, Manhattan Projects all over the place. We got Fusion Elemental. This is an 8/8 for 5. I mean, a lot of these are built because it's so difficult to get that mana on turn 5. You know what I mean? Like, it's not often that you will have one of each exactly on turn 5. This guy, obviously pretty powerful, though. He's an 8/8, and you can get him out pretty early. He's the headliner of the deck, I believe, with his super metal appearance. We got Maelstrom Archangel. This is a 5/5 for 5. That's kind of a theme that we got going on here with all these 5-drops. That they're one of each mana. I didn't point it out, I just wanted to talk to you about it. Whenever Maelstrom Archangel deals combat damage to a player, you may cast a non-land card from your hand without paying its mana cost. That's pretty awesome. It's going to let some of these more expensive cards come out, I guess. I mean, he's got evasion, she's got evasion, but I don't know. Prophetic Bolt is awesome, lets you draw a card, it also does some tricks. We got Bloodmate Dragon. Whenever it's Broodmate, not Bloodmate, but it should be Bloodmate. Well, actually, that's kind of disturbing when you think about it, so don't. He comes into play with a 4/4 buddy, so you get 2 dragons there. That was in the dragon deck once upon a time. Defiler of Souls. I don't want to know what he does to him to defile them, but he's going to get rid of a mono-colored creature every upkeep. We don't have any, notice that we do not have any of those. So we also don't have any creatures to play earlier than like turn 9. But whatever, you know, we're doing things together here. So yeah, he's gonna get rid of all those monocolored creatures that not many people are playing anymore. But if you're playing an old deck, that guy's gonna make him pretty sad. And he comes out pretty quickly with this deck's ramp. Pale Recluse, this guy's got 4 cycling and plain cycling. You can pay 2. The way that works is that you can pay 2 and you can fish up either a forest or a plains from your deck and put that into your hand. So it's a lot like cycling, which lets you draw a card for a specific cost. Otherwise, he's a 4/5 with reach for 6. That's not too impressive, but the cycling's kind of nice when you need it. Also, keep in mind when you are tutoring up your lands with your, you know, growths and your sack lands and all that kind of shit, remember that you've got a 4 cycler and a plain cycler in here times 2. Because I didn't know that earlier and I would have got an island, especially knowing that we only have 3 islands, but I would have grabbed an island if I had known that we had plains and forest cycling. So just be aware of that when you are fishing stuff up. We've got Violent Ultimatum for some mana. It's 7. But it breaks down really oddly. I mean, the destructive forces, obviously. But you destroy 3 target permanents, not so much green. Well, green is an artifact buster. So maybe they went black is creature. I don't know. Screw it. I don't know. Red actually used to have a lot of mana destruction, so that is viable. I'm going to go ahead and say it. And then green is an artifact, but you can pick any 3 permanents. You don't have to listen to the game designers. Screw you, game designers. Flavorful cards. Just play it and break some stuff. Breaking all sorts of things. We got Conflux here. Search your library for a white card, a blue card, a black card, a red card, and a green card. Show them to the guy you're playing against. Just show them to the whole table. Show them to your friends and your family. And then you put them into your hand and you shuffle your library afterwards. We got a lot of multicolored spells, so that's tricky. That's a little trickstery that you can do there with Conflux. Let's move on to our last one. It's Progenititious. He's got protection from everything. You can't look at him. Don't. That's why it's all hazy, because you can't see him. You can't see me. I just did the thing with my hand, but it didn't. You guys aren't. Anyway, if he would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, you're just like, hey, no. And you shuffle it into your library. He costs 7,000 mana, 2 of each, so you can do the math yourself. It's pretty tricky. It's probably 10. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But he's a big dude. He's a 10-10 for 10 mana, and you can't get rid of him. He's just there. Unless, you know, you get rid of him with other stuff. It's going to cost a lot of mana, though, generally. Unless, you know, you have, you know, any of the 4-drops that destroy stuff in the format. Whatever. My point is that this deck is crazy nuts balls. I don't know. What are those 19 cards? I have no idea. We'll look at it in a second, but that's a first impressions video that we're doing right now. And my first impression is that this deck terrifies me. It scares the shit out of me. I feel like this deck is playing me when I play with it. And I know I've only played with it once, but it was a scary experience. It was very disturbing, and I wet myself thrice while doing it. So this deck's nuts, you guys. I don't like these kind of decks. I don't like crazy mana bases. I don't like tutoring up lands every turn. And I especially don't like not having any creatures until like turn 8. So am I hopeful for this deck? Yes. Yes, I am. Was I hopeful for Berserker Rage? Yes, also. Just saying. I'm just saying there. It's their cards, it's a deck. I think this is pretty much the best way they could have handled this, so kudos to the game developers, to the people in charge of building this format, because I definitely think that so far it looks to be the most stable multicolor 5-color build, you know, that isn't super cheap with like mocks, anything like that. This seems really reliable, to be honest, just the way the base shakes down. If you get your green lands, your forests, with your original sack lands, I think that you can actually go through and do quite a good job with that deck. My finger got overexcited and just jumped right out of there, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I really love putting together these kind of first impressions videos. I hope you guys enjoy watching them. Let me know what you think about these two decks down in the comments. Like I said, we're going to be taking them online and playtesting a couple different iterations. I think we'll probably do a different build every video. And I'll try and make those as live as possible so that we can have discussions about what cards you guys think should go in and should come out. So that should be pretty fun. I'm actually looking forward to that quite a bit. But for right now, I want to thank you for watching this episode. I will see you guys on the next one.